night, cats and kittens. This is Tad the Whisperer Williams, welcoming you to my late night music fest. Gonna be playing some mellow tunes for you. Gonna make you feel good. Gonna rock you. Gonna sock you. No, not actually. I was just having a momentary lapse back into my radio days. Actually, I never did that kind of radio show. I did a lot of different radio shows, but I never did one where I was doing like that late night FM jazz, whatever it is, thing, hearts music from the hearts of space. I either did public affairs or I did weird, quirky music stuff that I liked. And I don't think I ever did anything under my own name. I think it was always like Nip Tuck or some variant thereof. Lamont de La Mancha, that was another one. But that was a long time ago and far, far away. Good evening and good to see you all. It's me, Tad. I am here to read and chew gum, and I'm all out of gum. No, I'm here to read and talk, and I'm never out of talk. So it's been another long and complicated week. We've had to deal with my dad having to go back into the hospital where he currently is and will, we hope, be out again in a couple of days. The man is 90 years old. He's 90 years old and he's dealing with a lot of health stuff. So it just is what it is. But it does appear that he will be coming out again. I am glad to report, and the whole family is glad to know. So that's what's going on with him. 3 minutes ago, well, not 3 minutes ago now, about 15 minutes ago, some idiot down the street who had a bunch of leftover fireworks set them off. And so dog Johnny, who might have come in tonight and hung out and we could have said hello to him, is instead out in the living room looking really just ticked off about life in general and miserable about loud fireworks sounds. So that's going on. Saw one of my closest friends, and certainly my longest term close friend, tonight, which was great fun, who is out visiting from the East Coast. And as a result, we got a chance to hang out and talk about old times. And since we are both old now, there are a lot of old times to talk about. And had great fun doing that and hanging out with Deb as well. And even got to talk to my friend's wife on the phone. So that was all good. What else? Yeah, we went over the hill today to see my dad, so that took up most of the day, especially because the traffic was ghastly. Something had blown up or fallen off or done something on the freeway, and there's really only one way to get to the other side of the hill from where I am in California to where we were living before, which is also where my dad and one of my brothers lives now. So couple of days back when I had first gone over, when he first went into the hospital, I was on my way back from there, coming back over to the east side of the hills. And as I'm driving along, I realized the traffic is starting to back up on the other side of the road. And I looked over and saw, and there was a gigantic, like an 18-wheeler truck. And the entire cargo load of the whole thing had caught fire. And it was sitting by the side, in the right lane of the thing, and it had been burning probably for 20 minutes, and most of it was now out. But I mean, it was just, there was like a quarter of what had originally been the body of the cargo part of the truck left, and the rest was just smoking wreckage. That was not today, but that was because I was going the other direction that time. Fortunately, we didn't see what it was today that made our 50-minute journey over the hill turn into an hour and 50 minutes, but whatever it was great fun, he said sarcastically. Anyway, what else is going on? Well, that actually is quite a bit that's been going on. That's, quite enough to keep me excited for one day. Driving over the hill, getting stuck in traffic for an hour, seeing my sick but, thank God, recovering dad, who's, really fighting the fight. Coming home and then getting to hang out for several hours with my good friend from most of my entire life. I mean, I think Corey and I met when I was in 8th grade, when we were both in 8th grade, in the back of the Spanish class. And we quickly realized that we both thought everybody else in the class except us were idiots. Um, a misidentification, an erroneous supposition that we operated on for many years after that. That pretty much everybody except for a few friends that we liked and respected were all idiots. Thankfully, I've gotten over that, and I've realized that life is a bit more complicated, and people are a bit more complicated than that. But it was one of those things when you're 14 years old and you meet a kindred soul who is as cynical about the world as you are. It's instant connection, and that's what we had then and still have. So that was all good, but it was a long and busy day. But I am here and I am going to be reading in just a short while. So that's all good. Let me check in and see if I've got any. No, of course not. That would be too easy. If I had any things I could read, any hellos or connections or whatever from people. We've already got a few. Yeah, and you're no help whatsoever. So let me just quickly say hello to the people who have wound up on the list, which is not necessarily the comments themselves. Again, I can't see the comments. They only will give me like a few comments. I don't know why. Every time I go to this, I try to set it for all comments, but no, no. Anyway, so let me just check in and see who's here. Maria Henschke, or Henschke, to pronounce it more correctly. Good to see you. Thank you for joining us, Maria. Holger, hello, hello. Wouter, you too, a pleasure. Evan, Lord, good name. Good to see you. Hazel, my mother-in-law, who is checking in from Aldridge in England. And hello, sweetie. Good to see you. Your daughter is sleeping the sleep of the just, and we had a lovely day together. Nicole is here. Kristen, hello, Kristen. Sandy K. Summer, hello, Sandy. Nice to have you with us. Nikki, a pleasure, as it has been, and very grand to see you. Carol, hello, Carol. Nice to see you too. That's Carol Aitken. Christy Sanders, Penny Davies, Mahmoud. Good to see you, Mahmoud. Chris, the person who puts these up on YouTube and therefore is always worthy of more thanks. So more thanks to you, Chris. Thank you. It's appreciated. Isaac, checking in from the middle of the country, comparatively, since I'm out here on the coast. Debbie, hello, Debbie. Good to see you. And Mark, who is checking in from presumably Yorkshire or somewhere in the environ, to put it in French terms. My friend Corey told a story I had completely forgotten about how mean we were to his sister, Gina, who is another great human being and is still my friend. And we're actually going to see tomorrow. When we were like 14 and Gina was like 10 or 11. And we were giving her a hard time about something. And we were just being difficult 14-year-olds. And Gina said something to the effect of like, if you don't stop it, I'm going to kick you in the groin. And Corey remembered that I said, Gina, it's French. It's pronounced groin. Which I'm very proud of after the fact. And it was irritating enough that she ran in to ask her father, Chris, if that was actually true. And Chris said, if you're even listening to them, you deserve whatever you get, which was also true. But Corey, Gina, all of us, Deborah, many of us are, we were the kind of kids that had read many more words than we had ever heard pronounced. So it was something where I could say it and she actually wasn't certain. She actually thought it was possible that groin was actually pronounced groin. Anyway, so I just thought I'd share that with you. I was rather proud of being reminded of that. I see other folks have. Okay, Sean is checking in from Mondulkiri in Cambodia. Excellent. Thank you, Sean. A pleasure. And yes, Mark confirms he is in Yorkshire, as per usual. And Winter checks in from Wellington, New Zealand, and waves. Hello, Winter. Good to see you. Anyway, so Here we are. Here I am. Here you are. That's a good arrangement to begin with. And in just a moment, I am going to go back to reading from Brothers of the Wind, which is what I'm doing. I'm wondering if there's anything else that I have to relate at the moment. No, because I haven't worked. I haven't done any work to speak of for several days because many trips over to see my dad in the hospital and various other complicated things that have had to be done and dealt with. Um, I literally spent 4 hours on the phone with the insurance company. You know, this is the exciting life of a best-selling writer, folks. I want to tell you this. It is everything that it is cracked up to be. The gala luncheons and the red carpet treatment and the constant pressure of the paparazzi. No. I said 4 hours on the phone with the insurance people who were really very nice, I have to say. I mean, it wasn't 4 hours because they were being jerks. It was 4 hours because of things like, after you finally get through the line, the what do we call it? The automatic telephone system. I'm old, folks. It's not that I don't know what it is. It's just that things suddenly pop out of my mind. The phone tree, you get through the phone tree, you wait through 15, 18 minutes of too loud music, and then you get cut off and you phone back in again and you wait 18, 20 more minutes and you finally get somebody, and as happened this time, and you get partway through the phone call and then you get cut off again. Fortunately, in my case, this guy actually phoned me back, which most of them don't bother to do when you get cut off. And we managed to go on and on and on and hammer it out. And we kept finding new things that had to be dealt with before we could deal with the things we wanted to deal with. Because life in the 21st century is flipping complicated. And everything is this interwoven set of systems that were not meant to be interwoven. So I mean, for instance, at one point I was sitting there with my phone, and I needed to get some information about the particular car that I was having the insurance changed on, which one of my kids had been driving. And I realized, like, I'm talking to this guy on the phone, but I cannot access my texts that have that information on it without leaving the phone app, and at which point it hangs up the phone every flippin' time. Don't ask me why, it just does. So I had to go and make a complicated arrangement, go borrow Deborah's phone and call them back on this other and stay connected. Got cut off, got cut back on with the phone that I was on, and then I realized I can't access my texts on Deb's phone because it wasn't texted to both of us. It was texted to me. So then I had to flip the phones around and call the guy back on the other phone and get the text. Oh God. Anyway, and this is, just to do stuff that you used to do by walking into the office and sitting across a desk from somebody. And instead it becomes this incredible marathon of different things and different systems trying to mesh together, and they've got their systems and I've got my systems, and I've got like three pieces of active electronica all doing different things on different applications and different. Anyway, so that has been my week, and of course dealing with my dad's illness. I have to say that I actually stayed over the night, the second night he was there, because my brothers had been there a long time. One of my brothers and his wife had been there a long time, and they were feeling like they were coming down with something and didn't really want to be around my dad or any of the people there with potential respiratory illness, which for all they knew it wasn't, but for all they knew could have been COVID or something. So like 8 o'clock at night they called me up and said, you said anything that we need you'll do, and they said we have to go, we can't stay, but we think somebody should be here. And so hopped in the car, drove over the hill, got there, stayed overnight, slept in a chair, all that kind of stuff. This is not a complaint, mind you. This is family, friends. This is what you do. Of course you do. And there's no feeling of like, oh, damn it, I have to do this. This is your family. And considering that we just lost my mom less than a year ago, Also after spending a lot of time in a hospital. It was definitely a thing that I was going to be there. And, that's why we were all taking turns. He's doing better. He's still in the hospital, but there's, a good chance that in the next few days that he will be well enough to go back and leave the hospital. But anyway, so really haven't gotten much of any work done. Fortunately, I'm done with the manuscript except for the stuff I was talking about last week, which is all the dates and stuff like that. Anyway, so have I babbled enough? Is there anything else that I needed to babble about? I don't think so. I don't think so. Take one look and see if there's any other. Okay, Dirk has showed up. Hello, Dirk. Good to see you. Laura. And Laura, as I often say, especially on the early Sunday broadcast, I don't know where people are checking in from, and it's too difficult to try and find them on Facebook. Oh, it just says Laura lives in Buffalo, New York. So I was going to say, you might be calling in from Italy for all I knew, in which case it might be Laura instead of Laura. I'll assume it's Laura. And anyway, nice to see you. Thanks for checking in. Okay, so, which all of that said, I think I am going to go ahead and start reading because that is at least nominally the reason we are all gathered here together is for me to read and people to be read to. So that's what I'm going to do. So, just to quickly update for those of you who haven't had a chance to listen to the prior broadcasts or didn't hear them or don't care, but you're going to listen now, so I might as well update you. So basically, this book takes place about 900, 1,000 years, something like that, before the events of the Dragonbone Chair. 500 years, roughly, in my mind. I might be wrong about that. But roughly 500 years before the fall of Azua and all that kind of stuff. Now, at this point, what later becomes the Hayholt Castle of the mortals, like Simon and Miriamel and all the others, is Azua, and it is the Scythi, or as they call themselves, the Zidaya, who are the residents. That is their place. And the equivalent of a royal family is the Sansara, as she called Amaterasu, her husband, the protector, who is a Unigato, and their two children. And their elder child is their son Hakatri, and Hakatri is married to Briseu. You won't need to know this until later, but I'm just going to put it in your head anyway. Hakatri is married to Briseu, and together they have a child named Likimea. Likimea, of course, is still around during the time of the Dragonbone Chair books, etc. And Hakatri's younger brother is Inaluki, who will, of course, will eventually become the Storm King, who is the chief adversary in the Dragonbone Chair, the whole Memory, Sorrow, and Thorn series. So there they are, the Zidaya, the Immortals, the Scythi, the Elvish types that are in Azua, and a group of mortals from what is then later going to be Hernastir come to ask their help because they are under assault by a dragon that has come into their territory. And they say this must be one of the old great worms. One of the ones from the old days, one of the big ones, one of the strong ones. And Inaluki, in particular, who is the most mercurial of the Scythi, kind of makes fun a little bit of this. And when they say to him, basically, you haven't seen it, it is this great dragon. We think it's the great dragon Hidohebi the Black. Inaluki kind of says, like, I'll come over and kill it myself. And his parents forbid him and say, essentially, don't be such a chump. And so when everybody gets up the next day, while the grown-ups are going to be conferring about what to do, when everybody gets up the next day, Inaluki is gone. And he is off to go after the dragon. So Hakatri and the narrator of the story, Hakatri's not Scythi squire, who is he's a Tanuka Daya, a changeling by race, I guess, or species or whatever. named Pamon Kes, Hakatri and various others go riding off to go try and catch Inaluki. And they eventually catch up, and Hakatri and his squire and Inaluki's squire and many others all catch up with Inaluki and eventually are convinced or are argued into riding into this valley where the dragon has supposedly taken up residence to at least go look at the area and maybe the dragon itself from a distance, and kind of check it out and see if these Hernisteria, if these mortals have any idea what they're talking about. So they ride into this very kind of creepy, narrow valley, and they find the dragon, or rather, the dragon finds them. And that's the part that I'm reading now. And a moment later, a sideways contortion of its long body being the dragon at this point. A moment later, a sideways contortion of its long body sent Hakatri flying into the trees. "Master!" I cried, forgetting even my overwhelming terror of the worm and my fear for him. I dropped Frostmane's reins and struggled through the broken trees and floating logs, quickly sinking into muddy water up to my hips as I left the track. Behind me rose the cries of the hunting party, but the worm itself remained oddly silent. I took one look back and saw the great, blunt head rise high into the air, shaking into little pieces someone who had once had a name and a history, showering the track with a drizzle of blood. Then I turned away in staggering horror, still searching for my master. I found Hakatri at last, half sunk in a backwater pool, tangled in broken branches. His face was out of the water, and he was breathing, but though I shook him, I could not summon any. Behind me were terrible. The ragged screams of the hunting party, and the noise of splintering spear hafts and shattering tree trunks combined into a skull-scraping din beyond my ability to describe. I got my arms around Hakatri and pulled him onto a higher bit of land, then slapped and tugged at him in a panicked effort to bring him back to his senses. At last his eyes opened. "Get up!" I cried. "Get up, master! The thing will kill us all!" "My spear," he said, trying to fix his eyes on me. "I have lost it. Where is my spear?" No spear was going to stop that dreadful thing. A score of spears would not have availed, but I did not waste time arguing. Instead, I dragged Hakatri toward higher ground as quickly as I could, though it seemed that every branch and root in our path caught at him and pulled against me. One of the horses came stumbling past me toward the reeds, and I grabbed at its harness. It was Frostmane, his rolling eyes showing white at the edges, though I saw no wounds on him. I called for help, but could hear no other voices now, only the dragon's thrashing movements, so I had to heave my master up into the saddle by myself, which was almost beyond my strength. Hakatri did what he could to help me, and when he was at last mounted, he reached down a hand and lifted me up behind him. "Where's Inaluki?" he said, his words slurred as though he was still dazed. "Where's my brother?" "I do not know, my lord. All have scattered before the worm's attack." The cracking and snapping of tree trunks grew louder, and suddenly the warhorse leaped forward beneath us, driven by terror of the approaching beast. In a moment Frostmane had found firm ground, and then no amount of pulling on the reins would slow the maddened horse. Even Hakatri could do no more than hang on, and I held on to him as Frostmane sprang from hummock to hummock through the swampy valley until he had doubled back around the place where the worm had attacked us. Some of the others were already there, racing up the track toward the mouth of the valley, as heedless of our fate as we had been unknowing of theirs. Inaluki was one of them, covered in mud and bloody scratches, but otherwise whole, and I thought I saw sea foam, too, her belly strap broken, dragging her saddle along the ground. My master did not even hold the reins tightly, but let Frostmane follow the other survivors out of Serpent's Vale. The remains of our company stumbled out of the valley and onto the broad silver way. Mortals and immortals mingled together, equals for once in the shock of what had happened. My master made a swift tally of the wounded and the dead. "Where is Tariki?" Hakatri's voice was ragged at the edges. "Has anyone seen him?" "He and several others are still missing," one of the others, Zediah, announced. "I pray he lives, but many are dead." Inaluki's eyes were dry, but his face was slack and haunted. "My faithful Yohei is one of them. My beloved friend and companion has been snatched from this life, and we cannot even bury her." Inaluki turned to his brother. "I have never seen one of the Zediah look so lost. I watched her die under the cold drake's claws. How can it be true? She has been with me since she was a child. How did this happen to her?" He laid both hands over his breast, as though to keep his heart pent inside him. Yohei's death struck me like a blow, too. She and I had not been anything like friends, but I had known her all my life and had never imagined she might not survive the day. In less than an hour, the whole world seemed to have tipped and fallen over. Sorry, I just lost my place there. Okay. "I also mourn Yohei," Hakatri said. "And Lilumo, the poet, is dead as well. His songs all ended. Tariki and several more that I love are missing. I want to scream at the sky, brother, believe me, but we must save our strength to care for the living. Many have been badly hurt." "I see Lord Tariki," one of the armigers cried. "He is leading a horse with 2 bodies across the saddle." "Praise the grove," said Hakatri. "Help him, you who are closest. Help those he brings, if they are not beyond it." Inaluki seemed fixed on something quite different. "Where is the mortal prince?" he suddenly demanded, looking around, his eyes wild with grief. "Where is the one called Cormac?" "I am here, Lord Inaluki." Cormac was kneeling over one of his herdsmen. When he sat up, he had blood on both hands. Inaluki walked toward the mortal prince, and even in the midst of so much mourning, those around watched in fear. Even my master Hakatri, though he could barely stand, lurched after his brother, ready to intervene. As Cormac watched uneasily, Inaluki stopped before him and said, "Give me your hand." Mr. Up to one knee and set the mortal prince's knuckles against his own forehead as though to pledge fealty. Something I doubt had ever been seen before between Zediah and mortals. Cormac's hand left a daub of blood on Inaluki's brow. "I was a fool, mortal," said my master's brother, "and both mortals and Zediah have died because of it. I was wrong to mock you. There can be no doubt that creature truly is Hidohebi, one of the great worms." "I take no pride in being right, my lord, especially when so many have fallen, your folk and mine." Cormac seemed confused by Inaluki's unexpected gesture. "As I said, I had seen the beast, and before that followed its tracks for many days." Inaluki released the mortal's hand. "Still, if I had not been so stubbornly, cursedly certain of what I did not know, my beloved Yohei might still be with me. I will live with that shame until my last day alive. I had never seen Inaluki's expression so devastated, so confused and hopeless. It verged, I thought, on real madness. Tariki, Clearsight, and those sent to help him now reached the road. I have 2 more wounded, Lord Hakatri, Tariki called as the armigers lifted the 2 limp figures from his saddle. Rukio and Uahe. Both are sorely hurt with many broken bones, and Uahe has lost much blood. Oh, said my master, groaning. By the garden, this has been a terrible day. Yohe and Lilumo, dead. So many others sorely hurt. For a moment he fell silent, overwhelmed. Then his head came up as though he heard some distant horn sounding, and his expression hardened. We must hasten back to Azua as swiftly as we can. Uahe and the other wounded need healers, and the Protector and Sansara must know of the monster we found as soon as we can reach them. But my witness is lost somewhere in that foul swamp. Without his speaking glass, made from a dragon's scale, we could only send a mounted messenger, which would take days. Do as you wish, said Inaluki, but I will not return to Azua. Hakatri gave him a strange look, half anger, half concern. It is necessary, brother, but do not fear. Yoe and the rest will be avenged, I promise you. We will come back with a larger company to destroy that evil creature. Still, said Inaluki, but nothing more. I could make no sense of that. Tariki limped over to join my master. It is a long journey back to Azua, Hakatri. 2 full days at least, but likely more, because we have lost several horses, and those who are badly hurt must be carried. Hakatri did not answer, but I could read the misery on his face. It will be as it will be, he said at last, but we can wait no longer. Perhaps we should take the wounded to Silverhome instead, suggested Tariki. It is closer than Azua, and Lord Enizashi will have many healers. Inaluki was pacing beside his horse. Talk and more talk. Yohei is dead, and as we waste time on this useless talk, more folk will suffer and die. There is always time to make a good choice instead of a bad one, my master said. Inaluki climbed back into his saddle, glowering. Then make a choice, brother, he said. My failure is terrible enough, even if all the wounded can be healed. I cannot stand to see any more deaths. I fear I will go mad if I do. Your pardon, my lords, said Cormac, coming to join them. But I remind you that Enizashi of Silverhome told us he wanted nothing to do with any hunt for the dragon. The worm had not killed any Zidaya then, said Tariki, and surely in any case he would not deny help to poor Uahe and the rest of our wounded. Even so, Hakatri said, it will be too long and too hard a ride up into the mountains, I think. I had seldom seen my master appear so defeated. And you have many injured men of your own, Prince Cormac, do you not? Lord Inazashi is moody at the best of times and does not like mortals. He might refuse to help you. He shook his head. We could go to Dunyadi, who is a strong friend of Year Dancing Clan. His house is on Birch Hill, only a few hours away from here. I know he would welcome us, and quite possibly the mortals too, but... What about Skyglass Lake? Cormac asked. Hakatri looked up, as startled as if he had been slapped. Of course, It is only a few short hours farther from here than Dunyadi's house. But will your people be welcome there?" Cormac nodded. "We often trade with the Sithi of Skyglass Lake." I was confused. "I do not know that name," I said. "Who are these Sithi?" "That is only our own herdsman word for your master's Zidaya folk," Cormac told me. "Lady Vinadarta rules over a Zidaya settlement in the foothills beside Silverhome Mountain. We often trade with them." "Do they have enough healers?" Tariki asked. "Yes, and I do not doubt they will help my wounded men as well as yours. We consider Vinadarta a friend." "Your idea is a good one, Prince Cormac." Some of my master's resolve had returned. "We will ride east to Skyglass Lake." We gathered up the fallen we had been able to carry out of Serpent's Vale, mortal and immortal, wounded and dead, and did our best to make those who still lived comfortable for the journey. More bodies still lay back in that terrible swamp, but we could do nothing for them while the monster lived. As we rode away, I prayed to the garden that my master's people would be able to recover, but I also hoped that I myself would never have to return to that place. The land between the Silver Way and Skyglass Lake wound through hills, but was not too steep, with open, level track in many places. Our horses made good time despite their unusually heavy burdens. As I rode, I looked around at the trees bursting with new green leaves and wondered that the world could still seem so vital and full of promise on a day so drenched in horror. The sun, which had not reached noon when we staggered out of Serpent's Vale, was sliding down behind the mountains by the time we passed between two high, craggy hills and into a long valley, being swiftly overrun by twilight. Inaluki had fallen back to ride by himself, but my master and Tariki and the mortal prince led the company on at great speed. Slender Skyglass Lake, its silvery waters now gone dark with day's end, stretched for almost a league along the base of the Sunstep Mountains. Soon we saw the settlement, and even by twilight it surprised me. It did not look like any Zidaya city I had yet seen. The homes and other structures were not made from stone or even wood, but out of colorful fabric stretched between trees, with nothing more solid than pickets of bundled reeds to be seen anywhere. The walls of these unsolid constructions waved and fluttered in every breeze, so that the place seemed more a garden of giant flowers than a place where anyone would live. "Why does it look as though they have just arrived?" I asked. "Make no mistake, Vinadarta's folk have lived here by the lake for many great years," my master told me. "But they make their homes the way all our folk did when the 8 ships first arrived in these lands, so that an entire city might be carried on the backs of its citizens." As we drew closer to the settlement, Tariki called out that he could see a group of riders coming to meet us. I could not see them through the lengthening shadows, but soon enough Tariki was proved right. Some 24 Zidaya were hastening toward us. Lord Hakatri raised his hand, and our company reined up to wait for them. The leader was female, and though she looked young, she seemed to control both her horse and her followers with ease. She halted them with a gesture, but continued forward by herself. "Surely that is not Vinadarta," said Tariki. "That is Vinaju, her daughter, my lord," Cormac told him. "But I have seldom seen her so serious or warlike." He lifted his hands high so the approaching rider could see them. Vinaju wore a chest plate of witchwood and carried a spear in her hand. "Lady Vinaju, hail!" he called.
It is Cormac of Hernsland, and several of your own folk are with me."
"This is an unexpected sight," said Vinaju, as she reined up a few paces away from my master and the others, smiling broadly. "Lord Hecatri, is that truly you, riding with the herdsmen?"
"It is," he said, "and this is my comrade, Tariki Clearsight. My brother Inaluki is with us too. We were attacked by a monstrous worm, and have lost several of our number. We bring wounded with us too, some of them very badly hurt." Vinaju's smile was gone in an instant. "Then let us waste no time. Follow me." She turned, and we spurred after her. Within a very short time, we passed in among the rippling cloth walls of the sky-glass settlement. The inhabitants came out to meet us with greetings that quickly turned to cries of sorrow when they saw the state of our company. The wounded were hurried off to the houses of healers, and the dead were reverently carried elsewhere. To be truthful, I remember little more of that evening. When all who needed swift care had been dealt with, Vinaju led the rest of us to a great billowing hall to meet with her mother, Lady Vinadarta. The white-haired mistress of Skyglass Lake was tall and spoke in a low, strong voice, but I was seated too far away to hear what she said. I was so exhausted and sore that I remember little of what I ate or drank, or how my master and the others told the story of what had happened in that cursed valley. At last my master Hecatri noticed me nodding in weariness, and bade me go to sleep. One of Vinadarta's household led me to a pallet in the tent-like room where my master would stay. Once I lay down, I quickly fell into a deep slumber. I was too tired to dream, and that was a blessing. Hang on, I'm just going to take a sip here. Next section. "I told you I am not going back to Azua, brother." Inaluki shook his head, his face as stiffly inexpressive as a festival mask. I had seen him smolder into anger or leap into joy many times, but this occasion seemed different. "If you want to carry the grim news to our parents, you may do so. I swore in front of all our people to kill the worm. I cannot return home until the beast is dead." Inaluki and the other survivors of our company had gathered in Hekatri's tent-like chamber, where the morning light made the walls glow with color. My master had proposed we ride home that day, leaving the wounded here at Skyglass Lake until they were well enough to return on their own. But Inaluki's words surprised everyone. "What madness is this?" Hecatri demanded. "You saw Hidohebi with your own eyes, brother. This creature is the spawn of Kairukumau the Great, who killed thousands. 70 of mounted warriors might be enough to give the blackworm a moment's pause, but only a dozen of us remain fit to fight, our armigers included in that number. We cannot hope to attack it again without help. In any case, this news must get back to Azua to tell the families of the fallen what happened here. Go then, and tell them." Inaluki did not even look at him. "I cannot. I will not. We all know it was my pride, my headstrong foolishness that caused this disaster." He paused, then lifted his right hand in the sign for a pledge. "Heed me, all of you. I swear by my ancestors and by the garden itself that I will not return to Azua until the blackworm is dead." A stunned hush fell over the gathered Zediah. I felt a clutch of icy despair. Ill thought and worse spoken aloud. Hakatri told his brother. "I wish you had never said such a thing." "But I did," Inaluki replied. "Still, it is my oath, not yours, brother. You may do as you think best." My master shook his head. "Such oaths often turn to curses," was all he said, but I could see that he was worried, even fearful. Tariki and the others begged Inaluki to take back his pledge, but he would not be moved. I had seen this obstinate streak in him before, but never in such terrible circumstances. Hakatri, too, tried to persuade him, but even his most heartfelt plea could not change his brother's mind, though it did finally drive him from Hakatri's chamber. When Inaluki had gone, my master was bleak. "I cannot leave him here alone. He is too full of shame over the deaths of our kin. Soon enough his thoughts will turn to redeeming his mistake, and he will go back to try to kill the great worm by himself if no one else." He turned to me. "I should have listened more carefully to Briseu's fears. I too have been a fool." "But no matter anyone's fault. You were right in what you told your brother," Tariki protested. "We are too few. If we hunt the worm, we will all die." "Go back to Azua, old friend," Hakatri told him. "Tell my father to send warriors to help us." Tariki gave him a doubting look. "And while I try to convince them, leave you behind to follow Inaluki into the swamp? Because you know when this mood is on him, he will go wherever his temper leads." "If only we could find a company nearby that would be large enough to have a chance against Hidohebi," said Hakatri. "Remember, Lord Dunyadi's house is close by," said Shuda, my master's niece, who was one of his newer hunting comrades. "We could look for help there." "Dunyadi's household is small," Hakatri stood. "But there are many of our folk here at Spyglass Lake, and Lady Vinadarta is wise. I will speak to her." The mistress of the Spyglass Lake settlement was taking her morning meal, but graciously invited my master and Tariki to join her. I was not specifically mentioned, but I stayed with my master, and one of Vinadarta's folk set out a plate for me as well. I ate bread and sweet butter while my master described his dilemma. "So you wish to mount a battle company without returning to Azua?" She frowned. "I have only just dispatched a large number of our warriors to the east 3 days past. Large by our standards, that is, not by Azua's. Giants are in the Limberlight." "We know," said my brother. "That is where we were also bound, before my brother took it into his head to seek out the blackworm. The company I sent was less than a dozen strong in any case," she said. "Not enough to kill such a dread creature as your worm, even if they were still here." Vinadarta seemed genuinely regretful. "I cannot help you, I fear, Hakatri. Not until they return, which will not be until the moon changes, I think." Hakatri closed his eyes for a moment, as if his very thoughts pained him, then suddenly opened them again. "Inazashi," he said. "The Lord of Silverhome has more than enough warriors." Vinadarta's long, thin face showed doubt. "But would he help you? He has little love for your parents, or Azua, and Prince Cormac tells me he already refused the mortals when they asked for his aid against the worm." "But we are not mortals. We are his kin," said my master. "It will do no harm to ask, and in any case it will keep my brother's mind occupied for a little while. I will go and tell him. We can reach Mezutua's southern gate by tomorrow evening." If you are determined to go, there is a swifter way, said Vinadarta. I will have my daughter lead you by a hidden passage to Silverholm's eastern gate instead. She sent one of her folk to fetch Vinaju. The young Zidiah soon appeared in her mother's chamber. She had taken the war braids out of her hair, which now fell like a veil across her shoulders. Her armor put away, she now wore the same rough clothing as the other Skyglass Zidiah. Yes, mother? Please lead Lord Lahakatri to Silverholm's eastern gate. You know the way. As you wish, her daughter said. Shall we go now? Hakatri rose and bowed to Vinadarta. I thank you for all your kindnesses, mistress, but first I must convince my brother to accompany us. He turned to Vinaju. We will be ready to leave at mid-morning. I will be waiting, Vinaju told him with a confident smile. Seeing it, I thought, here is one who craves a little adventure. When the sun had risen above the eastern hills, we set out, on foot this time. My master, his grim-faced brother, and I followed blue-haired Vinaju along rough and often hidden paths at the base of the high hills that edged one side of Skyglass Lake. We kept close to the water's edge until we approached the end of the lake. I did not even understand how this could be a swifter way to Mezutua, and even my master looked puzzled, but Vinadarta's blue-haired daughter led us along the lake's marshy rim until we had reached its eastern end. The noon sun was above us when we halted at last in a loud place. Here the lake ended in a roiling pool where twin rivers crashed down from the heights and joined to form a single cataract that fed Skyglass Lake. Vinaju led us to a small wharf in a backwater. Oh, hang on a second. No. I think I'm working here. Okay, good. Just double checking. Vinaju led us to a small wharf in a backwater just beyond the churning white waters. The rounded, shallow-drafted boats tied there looked strange to me. Instead of being open to the sky, even the smallest of the crafts had curved roofs of lacquered bark held up by slender wooden posts. Inaluki pointed at the covered boats. Do we look as though we fear the sun, lake child? Finaju grinned at him. Your words tell me you have never traveled the Fernlight Passage before, my lord. She gestured to one of the smaller craft. Come aboard, please, Lord Inaluki, Lord Hakatri. You too, Armiger. When we were all in the boat, my master asked if he and his brother should help row. Finaju shook her head. I thank you. Excuse me. When we were... excuse me, I think I'm going to sneeze. I'll just sit here looking like an idiot here for a couple of moments. When we were all in the boat, my master asked if he and his brother should help row. Finaju shook her head. I thank you, but I fear, despite all your wisdom and skill, you would do more harm than good. Wait and see what I do, then you will understand. Do not let your pride be hurt, I beg you. My master smiled, saying, It is not, and I see no reason it should be. But I thought Inaluki did not look so certain. To my surprise, Finaju did not use a paddle at all, but picked up a long pole from the bottom of the boat and pushed us away from the landing, through a thickening cloud of mist and spume directly toward the roaring cataract. But my master looked unworried, so I did my best to match him. Our small craft bobbed and rolled in the seething waters, but Vinadarta's daughter used the long pole to keep it from ever rolling too far. I quickly saw why Vinaju had kept the task of steering for herself. As we drew nearer to the thundering wall of water, she began to use the staff like a long arm, guiding us between one hidden stone, then another, all invisible beneath the turbulent foam as we bobbed ever closer to the waterfall. The morning sun was high now, and rainbows floated in the spray, making me think of the third garden poet, who called such things light singing itself into different hues. Just as it seemed we must founder beneath the down-rushing waters, Finaju dropped into a crouch, found the bottom of the river below the surface with the end of her pole, then bent her back, and with one graceful push sent us into the cataract itself. The sound of water crashing on the boat's frail roof break and smash down on us, or the sheer force of the water would plunge us down into the swirling maelstrom. Instead, before my heart had beat a dozen times, the thunder in our ears diminished. Then an instant later the boat stopped wallowing and began to float, as gently as a leaf. We had passed through the waterfall and into a cavern that lay hidden behind it. When I looked at my masters, Inaluki was grinning, though Hakatri was still impassive. Turning around in the bow, I saw that we had floated through not just a cavern, but a high, dark crevice, carved into the rocky base of the mountain, its rough walls illuminated only by sunlight seeping through the waterfall behind us. We were on a river that flowed much more gently than the pair that crashed down the mountainside and joined to form the cataract that blocked the inlet from view. This hidden inlet flowed into Sky Glass Lake so gently that no one would ever guess it lurked behind the violent falling waters. "Now you will see the Fernlight Passage," said Finaju. As we moved away from the opening, the light grew less and less until we traveled in almost complete darkness, though somehow Finaju never ran aground. For a long time I could see and hear nothing, but just when I began to feel truly ill at ease, wondering what kinds of creatures might be clinging to the rocks above me or swimming just beneath the surface of this isolated watercourse, the passage began to lighten again, and with that glow came the noise of splashing water. "The first garden of the passage," Finaju announced. Daylight now beamed down through gaps in the stone above. Water flowed through many of those gaps, some in mere trickles, others in arching streams. These sluices of water seemed only slightly quieter than the great cataract, because we had traveled so long in near silence. Now that light had returned, I could see the huge nodding ferns and other leafy green things that grew all along the river's edges. Vines grew among them, climbing the walls and sometimes even covering the entire ceiling of the passage. We skimmed on against the sluggish current, passing through several more of these sunlit gardens and through other narrow places where curtains of water descended from above. At first Inaluki was much taken by the beauty of these unexpected gardens, and admiring them, sang snatches of old songs. After a while he fell as silent as my master Hakatri, but with the air, or at least so I thought, of one who now wanted the journey to be over. By the way, I'm going to run just a few minutes past the top of the hour before I get to a good stopping point, I think, so just to let you know. With Finaju guiding our little boat, we emerged from the passage at last into a great underground cavern filled by a vast black lake. Here no light leaked down from the sky. We were deep beneath the mountain. But the water was illuminated in spots by a few of Finaju's people in small boats like ours, each with a lantern in the bow. Far across the black lake, a strange glowing archway seemed to hover above the gently rippling waters, washing the cavern's rough walls with a warm glow. "This is Lake Starless," Finaju announced, "and the bright arch you see in the distance is the old gate. My grandfather once told me it is part of the hull of the great ship that founded Mezutwa." So saying, she put down her pole and at last and took up a paddle. The water was so calm that after only a few dips of the blade we slid away from the Fernlight Passage. soon after we reached the glowing arch and the massive wall. The wall itself was high and smooth, slanting upward and away in a very gentle curve until it disappeared far above our heads. I was stunned to think that I was seeing the remains of one of the great ships of legend. The huge, smooth structure seemed not merely to rest upon, but to grow out of the very stone of an island, although even with the glow from the archway it was hard to see where that island ended and whether more of the lake, you named it, was marked out in crystal tiles that glowed rose pink and warm amber, made of what looked to be witchwood with hinges of metal. Finaju left us there, accepting my master's thanks with a smile and a bow. However, it was not my master Hakatri she looked at longest as she turned to paddle back across the lake, but Inaluki, who stood staring up at the giant portal unaware of her gaze. It was something I have often seen. Inaluki's elegance and beauty have captured many hearts and will doubtless capture many more. I think actually I should stop there because we have another many hundreds of words before there's another stopping part. So I think I will stop there. Let me mark it. Mark that spot. Doop. Okay, there we go. All right, and with that, I am going to wrap it up for the night. I am, as always, extremely grateful for your company and your patience and all of that good stuff. It's always hard for me to conceive of it that way because I will be going to sleep in between, but it is tonight. And then I will be back, as far as I know, everything being equal, I will be back next week for the same time slot because we are going to continue doing this until we at least finish this book before I figure out what's going to happen next. And in the interim, I will keep doing what I do. You keep doing what you do. Take good care of yourselves. Take good care of your friends and loved ones. And help those who you can help when you can help. And that's really pretty much it. That's the philosophy in a nutshell. And in the end, the love you take is equal to the love you make. And that's what's going to go on my tombstone. So I hope you will all bear that in mind and be well and be safe. And I will talk to you very soon. Peace. Good night or good morning.